You have applied to a top corporate job and have just received the invitation to take an SHL test. The SHL what? SHL is a world-leading psychometric test provider who licenses out its tests to a wide array of companies such as Amazon, Deutsche Bank or Vodafone. If you find your target employer on one of these slides, you surely are watching the right video. And be aware, SHL boasts of having 10,000 clients worldwide already who will ask you to take an SHL test, and the pool is growing. What am I covering in this interactive SHL practice video tutorial? First, I will give you a quick intro to what SHL is about and how your SHL test result is taken into account in your recruiting process. SHL offers very many test modules, so next I will help you find out which specific assignments you need to prepare for. Then we go straight into familiarizing you with the various test modules SHL offers and, most importantly, with its flagship product, namely the interactive SHL General Ability Test, also named the Verify Interactive G+ Practice Assessment. To make you familiar with the type of test questions that you need to prepare for, we will then break down the SHL General Ability Test into its subcomponents, namely the Interactive Numerical Reasoning, Deductive Reasoning and Inductive Reasoning test modules. For each of these modules, I will introduce you to the in total 13 question types that you need to prepare for. They match exactly those that you will face in your actual SHL test, and you can have a go at all these practice questions yourself in this interactive practice video tutorial, before I reveal their solutions to you. At the end of this video, and importantly, I share my 6 tips on how to prepare and practice and excel in your SHL test, and will tell you how you can access further SHL practice questions for free. And given that these SHL psychometric tests can be a bit dull occasionally, and since I want both you and me have a little fun with this video, I chose for it an SHL party theme. Yay! Be ready for some irony. In case you do not make it until the end of this tutorial video, I want to make you aware of my collection of free business and consulting online test preparation materials. In my free online test prep kit, you find my growing list of links to free online mock tests, as well as all the links to the free SHL mock tests that I suggest you to practice with later in this video. I update this compilation of free test preparation materials regularly. You can download these resources immediately and for free after signing up to my UN Consulting newsletter, link in the description below. Here on my UN Consulting YouTube channel, you find practical advice for your business and consulting careers, presented by Jack. That's me in this kitschy glitter jacket, who actually has worked for 5 years as a consultant and project manager with the world's largest management consulting firm, McKinsey & Company. And now, let's dive in. SHL. Who is bothering you? Usually, you are faced with a request to take an online assessment as the first step of your recruiting process after sending your application and before being invited to online or personal interviews with representatives of your target company. SHL belongs to the veterans of psychometric test providers. SHL does not stand, as I had initially thought, for sudden hear loss or maybe the Swedish Hockey League, but for Saville and Holdsworth Limited. Peter Saville and Roger Holdsworth were 2 British psychologists who founded SHL in 1977. Then they undertook the honorable mission to create questionnaires designed to assess job aptitude objectively, as an alternative to hiring through the old boys networks or other more dubious candidate selection methods. SHL's business grew so well that in 1997 it went public on the London Stock Exchange. Another 20 years later, in March 2018, it was acquired for $400 million by the private equity firm Exponent Private Equity, which proudly announces that nowadays SHL was, quote, the largest provider of psychometric and cognitive talent assessment for business globally, and served 80% of the FTSE 100 and over 50% of the Fortune Global 500 companies. And SHL is not stopping innovating. For instance, it is working on the creation of AI-driven so-called digital humans in order to guide you through your assessment with empathy. I want to celebrate this human achievement with you. And if you like this video so far, please honor me with your like and subscription for further top quality business and careers advice. By the way, Roger Holdsworth founded another psychometric test company in 2006. If you need to take the Talent Q or Korn Ferry assessment, which for instance is demanded from applicants to the top management consulting firm Roland Berger, I have got you already covered in this tutorial video. How is your SHL test result used in your recruiting process? Whatever SHL test you need to take, and we will discuss which SHL test types you ought to prepare for in a moment, what happens once you have finished your SHL online test? You then usually must wait for a couple of days until your target employer gets back to you to inform you whether or not you get advanced to the next stage of your application process, usually job interviews. Behind the scenes, after you have completed your test, your employer of choice will receive an automated test report, apparently looking like this. In this example report on the SHL General Ability Test, also called the Verified G+ assessment, a summary on your test performance is provided and broken down into the inductive, numerical and deductive reasoning test parts. Be aware that it is not the absolute number of correct answers that is stated in the test report, but your relative performance in comparison to other test takers. So in this mock report example provided by SHL, your performance in the inductive reasoning questions as part of a general ability test was better than that of 68% of other test takers. Normally, employers continue considering your application if your test performance exceeds a certain cutoff percentile, maybe 50%, 60% or 80%. These threshold values are at the total discretion of the companies using these tests and they may fluctuate and be set in accordance with the hiring targets of the company. So, what can you do? You can and should prepare and practice well for your test. Whatever amount of new recruits your employer of choice is currently hiring, a better test score will always increase your odds of getting advanced to the interview stage and to land your dream job. In some cases, and dependent on the decision of your target employer, you may also receive a candidate report, which summarizes your performance on a more qualitative level, whereby I assume that each of these lines stands for a 20% percentile. So if you have landed in the A region, you probably have performed better than 80% of your peers. The SHL mock reports I've just shown to you are available publicly and provided for free by SHL. They are very hidden though. You find the links to these mock reports together with all the other links to SHL mock tests in my free online test prep kit 2, which is available for free download through my UN Consulting newsletter, link in the description below. Which SHL test modules do you need to take? In order for you to prepare for your upcoming SHL assessment most effectively, we ought to clarify which SHL test you are going to take. Today, SHL offers a myriad of job aptitude tests, all of which I cannot cover in this video, although I'm gradually expanding my UN Consulting video library over time. In this video, I want to focus on one of the SHL flagship tests, which you are very likely to face when you apply to one of the multinational companies listed at the beginning of this video. The interactive SHL General Ability Test, or the Verify Interactive G+ Practice Assessment, as well as its 3 subtest modules, the Numerical, Deductive and Inductive Reasoning Tests. Some companies may ask you to only take one of the subtests or a combination of them, while probably the majority of companies ask you to take the G+ Practice Assessment, which however draws on the same types of questions as the 3 subtests. Be aware that SHL nowadays offers 2 different versions of the General Ability Test. The older General Ability Test, or Verified G+ Practice Assessment, is a standard multiple choice test. The newer General Ability Test, or Verified Interactive G+ Practice Assessment, is claimed to be more interactive and can also be taken on a mobile. In order to verify that you are indeed asked to take a next generation General Ability Test or reasoning test, there are a number of things you can do. If you are lucky, this is transparently stated on the recruiting section of your target employer's website. If you are unsure, it is legitimate to call the responsible recruiter and ask what sort of online assessment you ought to expect. This only proves that you want to prepare diligently. Alternatively, you can find further information in your email invitation to the SHL test, where the name of your assessment might be given. You can also click on the invitation link in your email and then hit the Begin Your Assessment link to your test to check the instructions given online without yet actually launching your test. If in either your invitation email or in the instructions provided on your test websites you find the words interactive or activity-based test, you can be sure that you are taking the more modern interactive test version. Furthermore, you may check in your instructions screen the number of questions you will be asked to solve. At present, both the old and the new General Ability Test last for 36 minutes, but while in the old version you will be prompted with 30 questions, in the new version you will only have to handle 24 questions. You also find differences in numbers of questions and test duration for the different reasoning tests. For the sake of completeness, I also list here the verbal reasoning test, although so far there does not exist any interactive version of it. Of course, be aware SHL may decide to change its test structures in the future. What are now the key differences between these two test versions? Well, both were designed to assess the same type of capabilities, but I find the old version easier, which impression is also corroborated by the fact that it includes more questions than the new version at the same test duration. Furthermore, the old test version looks rather old-fashioned by today's standard. In contrast, I find the questions in the new version more difficult and it has a more modern touch, since it is not anymore a pure multiple choice test, but you drag and drop objects around the test questions to give your answer. More on that later. For the purpose of this video, I will focus on the new interactive General Ability and Reasoning Test and show you interactive type test questions exclusively for two reasons. It is the more modern test version, and I'm pretty sure that SHL is encouraging its existing and new clients to adopt the newer test version. Furthermore, the interactive type questions are the more difficult ones. If you are, however, concerned that you may still be required to take the older version of a General Ability Test, don't despair, I have covered you too. Download my free online test prep kit for sure, and practicing with the interactive type questions in this video will help you hone your skills in any case. Which test do you need to take and for which company or companies? It would be really cool if you could state that in the comments below this video. Furthermore, if you check the video description below this video, I recommend one General Ability Test preparation package that includes a vast amount of mock tests for both the interactive and the old test types. I will instruct you on the various options on how to prepare for both the new as well as the old SHL test type questions at the end of this video. Now, let's make you familiar with the various SHL test question types. The SHL General Ability Test, or Verify Interactive G+ Practice Assessment. Interactive practice! In the following, I will familiarize you with the actual types of questions you will face in your General Ability Test and allow you to practice them with me together interactively. SHL is kind enough to offer some General Ability Test mock questions to get an idea of what to expect, and when I was conceptualizing this walkthrough video, I had the idea to take you through some of SHL's official mock assessments. I must admit though that I got somewhat wet feet when going through these mock assessments for you, since SHL demands you to confirm at their beginning. I will not copy or distribute information from this assessment in any form. These mock tests are, however, publicly available for everyone, and probably this clause refers to the actual and secret SHL tests. Still, I do not want to run any risk of being accused by SHL for an intellectual property rights violation. I'm speaking from experience, since when I recently published my tutorial on how to crack the Arctic Shores test, another online assessment, the test provider company Arctic Shores wrongly accused me of violating its intellectual property rights, and it took me 30 days to get my video reinstated for you. To play it safe, in order to familiarize you with the actual question types that await you, I will instead draw on mock questions that come from a perfect simulation of the SHL General Ability Test. I believe this is even better for you. First, you can still go through the official mock tests that SHL offers, and second, the practice questions from the simulation that I am going to walk you through in this video are more challenging and realistic than the easier mock test questions that SHL offers. I say more about this perfect SHL test simulation at this minute of the video. The mock tests that SHL itself offers are difficult to find. I have researched and added the links to all SHL's free mock tests that I could find to my free business and consulting online test prep kit, link in the description below, and I will say more about how to use SHL's official resources at the end of this video. Now let's get to work. Party! Practice time! If you need to take the interactive SHL Numerical Reasoning Test, you will face 5 different types of questions. If you need to take the Interactive General Ability Test, for its numerical test component, it will also draw on the same 5 numerical reasoning question types. Numerical Reasoning Test questions, line chart. Let us start with a line chart question for the warm-up. I generally found all the line chart questions I have seen during my practice very easy and straightforward. I hope you too. Have a go yourself. Read the instructions and pause the video. Now I present to you the solution. It is given that in 2021 there were 72,000 customers, and it is said that these were 10% fewer customers than in 2020, or put differently, 90% of 2020 customers. In order to get to 100% of customers in 2020, we need to multiply with the reciprocal value of 90%, or 10/9, and get to 80,000 customers. In 2022, there were 30% more customers than in 2020, hence 104,000 customers. And in 2023, additional 4,000 customers were gained, so in total 108,000 customers. In the actual test, you then have to drag and drop these blue dots into their correct positions. I found almost all line chart questions that I have seen rather easy, so I would not worry about them too much. Typically, you need to apply rather simple arithmetics and percentage calculations without many traps. If you maybe want to refresh your mind why 10/9 is a reciprocal value of 90%, I've made a 5-minute video in which I remember you about the basics of percentage calculations. You find it here. Next question type. Pie chart. In the pie chart questions, you always need to provide the 4 shares of a total. Again, take a look at the instructions, and if you like to have a go at the question yourself, pause the video now. I resume for the solution. Essentially, you should quickly recognize that there are 4 unknowns here, and that you need to set up 4 different equations to solve for these 4 unknowns. Island C is not specifically described, so we express the other questions in terms of C. The population of Island A is 4 times as big as that of Island C. Island B has a population of Island A minus 92,200, or 4 times C minus 92,200. Island D is C plus 4,200. The necessary 4th equation is given as the sum of the 4 island populations, 250,000 equals A plus B plus C plus D. Now plug in the other equations into the 4th one and solve for C, which equals to 33,800 people. Then compute for the other populations. Remember, eventually you need to fill in the percentage shares of the Samoa Island populations, so you still need to divide each individual population by 250,000 to obtain the 4 answers to the question. Note that in the actual test, you do not need to fill in these blanks, but instead drag the lines between the 4 pies to set the correct 4 figures. Believe it or not, for this dragging feature, this test is called interactive. And since we are celebrating our SHL party, if you find this video useful so far, please show your love and leave a like, subscribe to my UN Consulting YouTube channel for further business and consulting career advice, hit the bell icon to be alerted about new video uploads, and share a video of mine that you like. Hey, I thought this was a party! Yes, sure. The pie chart questions are somewhat more challenging, especially if you have got a bit rusty with linear algebra. It's not always an equation system that you need to solve for, but if that is what is required from you, you need to quickly recognize it and write down the 4 equations that together will yield you the 4 unknowns. For some pie chart questions, you can skip the calculations in absolute numbers and straight calculate in percentage terms. It varies by pie chart question. After you have practiced them a bit, you will recognize that for yourself. Also, you notice by now that for the numerical reasoning test questions, it is very useful to have a pen and paper and a calculator ready. Next question type. Ranking 1. Since we are celebrating an SHL party here, I thought I'd bring one gift myself. To familiarize you with a ranking question, I've constructed a common ranking question for you myself. Typically, you are given 6 names of people whom you have to put into the right order. Read the instructions and if you like, try to fulfill the task given. Pause the video now. And I resume for the solution. For the ranking questions, you often have to find the right starting point and then compute yourself through the chain. Here the starting point is Brian, whose score is given with 200. Next in line is Lisa, who scored 30% more points than Brian, hence 260 points. Dirk's figure depends on Lisa's score. He scored half of Lisa's, hence 130 points. Rachel is next, who scored 450 points. Bernhard scored 210 points and Rita 155 points. This is the computation chain here. Finally, make sure you apply the right ranking. 1 here stands for the lowest points and 6 for the highest points, so this is the solution. Note that in this example, you did not need the information of the total team score. The ranking questions I found rather straightforward and of average difficulty level at most. Try to quickly find the starting point that goes through the chain. If you are lucky, the different statements are not too nested with each other. Eventually, pay attention to the ranking logic, so is it from the top to the bottom or vice versa. No break, let's go on. Number ranges. For the number range questions, you are usually given 2 criteria and then need to check to what extent these 2 criteria get fulfilled, which will determine your answer. Very often these questions seem to ask for some sort of employee or sales agent bonus, so I selected such an example for you. Read the instructions on the left of the screen and then decide which bonus you ought to pay to Jerome. Mind you, in the following I take you through 4 different screens for Jerome, Anthony, Maria and Rachel. So if you want to practice this question type, you need to pause the screen 4 times. Let us start with Jerome. Next, Anthony. Next, Maria. Next, Rachel. Let us go through the solutions. You should quickly see that Jerome exceeded the goal by exactly 10% and that the average of his rating certainly exceeds 7, hence his bonus is $25. Anthony has over-delivered by 15% and his average satisfaction rating equals to 8, so he is entitled to receiving a $50 bonus. You can quickly derive that Maria will be sent home without the bonus since she did not reach the 10% target, however happy her customers may be. Also, Rachel will leave empty-handed because her average customer rating is just below 7. That is so sad, given she has exceeded the delivery goal by more than 20%. So sorry for Maria and Rachel. Let us show some empathy and have a party drink on them. Well, as you can see, these number range questions are normally not intellectually challenging. However, they are time consuming since you have to follow the same routine 4 times and remember you are competing against time. If a person fails on one criterion already, you do not need to check the second one anymore. Furthermore, to speed your thought process up, try to perform most calculations mentally since they are not that hard. Only if you are not immediately sure, put the digits into a calculator to play it safe. So in summary, spend just enough time on the number range questions to ensure that your answers are accurate. Let's move on to the question type that I find most challenging in the numerical reasoning test. Bar chart. The bar chart questions regularly are the ugliest within the numerical reasoning test parts. In a moment you will find out why. I suggest you have a go at this question yourself, read the instructions and pause the video now. I shall present the solution. The information that is given and that should serve as your starting point is that the soundtrack loading time after the upgrade is 25 minutes. Then it says that the movie loading time before the upgrade was 3 times slower. That means it took 3 times as many minutes, hence 75 minutes. The information that the movie loading speed was 25% faster after the upgrade translates into the information that the loading time has decreased by 25%. Hence we reach 56.25 minutes. The ratio between movie loading time post-upgrade and soundtrack loading time before the upgrade is 5:6. That means pre-update soundtrack loading time is 6/5 times the post-upgrade movie time, or 67.5 minutes. Now we can sum up the minutes to fill the blanks at the top of the 2 bars, and eventually we have to calculate the 4 percentage shares. Be aware that in the actual SHL test you do not need to fill in the blanks, but interactively drag these 4 lines to express the correct results. I am sure you have enjoyed this little task tremendously. Besides the pie chart questions, for me the bar chart questions have always been the toughest in the numerical reasoning test part. I would say that this question presents a bar chart question of average difficulty. The slower faster thing is a bit of an uncommon logic, and the correct results look counterintuitive since they are uneven. However, rather often you will have to fill in charts with 3 bars or bar charts with more than 2 segments, so you then have 9 unknowns instead of 6 unknowns. For each bar chart question, try to find the starting point, then check if there's some sort of chain you can follow through. Sometimes you need to set up an equation system. Solving the bar chart questions takes most of your time. I think in the numerical reasoning test section, on average the bar chart questions are the most difficult ones, followed by the pie chart questions. Then it probably is the ranking questions, followed by the number ranges questions, and eventually the line chart questions. If after going through these 5 question types you believe you ought to practice numerical reasoning test questions a bit more, then I recommend you to check out the links in the video description below, and more on those at the end of this video. And sorry that I say this multiple times, I just repeat this piece of information in case you do not watch this video from the beginning to the end. Next, I want to familiarize you with the next set of question types. Deductive reasoning test questions, schedule management. There are at least 4 different question types in the deductive reasoning test parts. To prepare you even better, in the following I want to make you familiar with 5 example questions. As said before, I was not sure if I'm allowed to feature in this video SHL's own mock test questions, therefore I again drawn the perfect SHL test simulation. Let us start with a schedule management question. Again, I invite you to practice the question yourself, read the instructions and pause the video. What makes this question annoying is that you are provided with a schedule, but then presented with myriads of exemptions and changes to it. The schedule management questions come in slightly different variations. For each schedule management question you are presented with, you need to decide for yourself. Can I handle it mentally? Or do I play it safe and write it down on paper, which costs more time? To take you through the solution, I offer you the luxury of a second schedule in which I mark the adjustments. First change, the conference at 10 AM is moved forward by half an hour. Second change, the conference starting at 12 PM starts 30 minutes earlier and runs for 30 minutes longer. Third change, the audience of the 3:30 PM conference grows by 10 attendants. Fourth change, the conference starting at 1:30 PM extends by 30 minutes. Fifth condition, after each conference the room is blocked for 1 hour for cleaning. Now it is easy to see that the only available slot for the additional 1.5 hour conference is from 11 AM till 12:30 PM, followed by 1 hour of cleaning. At maximum we have 270 people in the building, which is well below the conference center's maximum capacity. If you go through this exercise mentally, you may be faster, but it also is easier to make mistakes. So in this example, it probably was a good idea to take the time for drawing a second adjusted timetable. In any case, have checkered paper ready, and when you practice the different subtypes of this question for some time, you will get a feeling if you should draw it out or not. Next, ranking 2. We have already seen a ranking type question in the numerical reasoning test section. The deductive reasoning test includes another ranking question. Let me take you through the example question I've brought for you. If you'd like to try it yourself, pause the video now. I resume for the solution. In order to approach these ranking type questions, I suggest you to take an empty sheet of paper and develop the correct order step by step. We can start straight with the first statement, Billy sold less than George, though it is still possible that somebody goes between the two, so leave a gap. The next statement comes in very handy, so let us continue with Rafik sold more than Joel, but less than Billy. So it must look like this. Jack sold more than George. Again, we do not know at which position Jack ultimately lands, so leave some space between the names on your paper. Sue sold less than Adina, but more than Jack makes it look like this. Then lastly, Lee sold more than Adina. We do not even need any more of the remaining statement. This is the correct ranking. When you are faced with a ranking question, try to find the easiest starting points or statement. If you are lucky, it is rather straightforward like this one. Sometimes it is a bit more ambiguous when you have to think through different scenarios to ultimately select the only one that can be true. Meeting. A rather fun type of question, I hope I may say this given we are on the SHL party here, are the meeting type questions. Here again you are provided with a set of statements and need to logically derive the alignment of different people in, for instance, a meeting room or an office. Let me show you an example. As usual, if you like to try it yourself, pause the video now. The solution is coming. To approach this question, I suggest you first copy the 6 offices to a piece of paper and note down which office belongs to which of the 2 teams. Then the starting point is easy. It is given that Sia sits in office 2. Identifying the appropriate next statement to work with actually is the most challenging one of this riddle. You need to continue with Jan sitting beside Rajesh. Given office 2 is already occupied by Sia, the only available option for this to happen are offices 4 and 5. When it says Diana is sitting across or opposite to May, the last available team B spot for May is office 3, with Diana sitting on the other side in office 6. Conclusively, Kevin occupies office 1. For the meeting questions, I usually like to first try solving them mentally only. However, if they confuse me, I copy the meeting room layout on a piece of paper, then I try to find the starting points and work through the statements. I actually enjoy these little quizzes. Almost feels like fun and games. Unfortunately, there's a time limit and it may decide over the fate of my job application. Ready for the next party fun? Calendar 1. The calendar questions can be somewhat uglier, so I want to familiarize you with the 2 main calendar type questions. Let us start with the ones where you need to find a date that everybody has in common. These questions always deal you some monthly calendar, like in this example. The same procedure as usual. To practice, pause the video now. I resume for the solution. It helps to mark the implications from the statement in the calendar. I go from the top to the bottom. First, for Daphne, we can cross out all Tuesdays and Thursdays. Then the days from 11th to the 21st of a month given Tori's requirements. Thirdly, if Amira is available on Sundays, Mondays and Fridays, then she is not available on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays. For Dave, we can cross out the days from the 5th to the 26th of the month. What is the correct answer now? If you have selected the 2nd, the 4th and the 30th, you fell into the trap. Counterintuitively, the question does not ask for a date everybody is available to meet, but a date where all 4 team members are absent. The correct solutions are the 13th, the 15th and the 20th. For all calendar type questions, it would really help to be able to mark the implications from the statements with a pen on a printed calendar. One reason these questions are troublesome is because you are supposed to run through them mentally. What you can do to make your life a little easier and safer is to draw 7 calendars before your test starts, with each of the 7 months starting on a different weekday. Then, when you are prompted with a calendar question, you pull out the fitting one. If you want to simplify the process a little bit, you can also draw just one calendar and then assign it the weekday with which it starts in your example, so in this case with a Thursday. Then you just need to be aware that your calendar weeks start on Thursdays. I would say this was a calendar type 1 question of average difficulty. Let me introduce you to the second type of calendar questions. Calendar 2. I could have left it here with the calendar questions, but there's a second nastier type of calendar questions which differs a little from the previous one, and so I really want to familiarize you with the second type too. If you want, you can try out the strategy I just explained and draw up a calendar before having a go at another calendar question, or if you want to keep the level of difficulty higher, again try to solve this question mentally. Read the task and pause the video now. Let me share a first tip. This question seems very challenging at first. There seems to be no obvious starting point. What helps is to check which dates actually are available for the workshop. It says 3 weekdays are followed by 1 off weekday, while weekends are not available at all. I visualize the available workshop dates for you here. You can see that the first workshop needs to start on the 1st of a month and that the last workshop must run until the 31st. Since you are asked to select the starting dates of the operations and R&D workshops, I highlight the 6 possible workshop starting days. Now take a second look at the conditions. Do you find the starting point now? If you like, pause again. Now represent the rest of the solution. It is said that the sales workshop cannot take place on Wednesdays or Thursdays, and voila, then the only slot available during the entire month that excludes Wednesdays and Thursdays is the second one. Then it is clear that data must follow as the third one and the rest falls into place. Given that the product workshop must take place during the first half of the month, now only the first slot is remaining. It furthermore says that operations must be equidistant from both sales and R&D. Obviously this task is complete nonsense, but anyhow, there's only one slot available that allows that, slot number 4. R&D must run last, and marketing is the penultimate workshop of the month. I hope you have got an idea by now what to expect from a deductive reasoning test or the deductive reasoning question types that are part of your interactive SHL General Ability Test. At least you know what's coming. If you want to invest some time into practicing before you take your assignment, make sure to download my free collection of online test prep materials and take a look at the perfect SHL test simulation. You'll find the links in the video description below this video. I think now we are ready for the next part. Inductive reasoning test questions, shapes. Hang on. Do you actually know what is the difference between inductive and deductive? Frankly, I did not, so I looked up some definitions. This is one of them. The main difference between inductive and deductive reasoning is that inductive reasoning aims at developing a theory, while deductive reasoning aims at testing an existing theory. In other words, inductive reasoning moves from specific observations to broad generalizations. Deductive reasoning works the other way around. This definition sounds to me as if inductive reasoning works bottom-up, from details towards a conclusion, while deductive reasoning starts top-down, from a statement to logically derive a solution. The same concept applies to different communication styles. I've made a video teaching you how to communicate like a consultant. However, this philosophical discussion does not matter that much for your SHL test. You just need to solve whatever question is thrown at you. In the inductive reasoning test section, you only find 3 types of questions, and it is really weird. One question type I find very easy, whereas the other 2 I find very difficult. Let me show you an example of a shapes question. For the shapes question, you need to observe a pattern of shapes and suggest how the next in line should look like. If you like, have a go yourself and pause the video. I resume for the solution. In the shapes questions, you always have to watch out and recognize some patterns of common movement, coloring, changing, sequences and the like. In this example, the red triangles just move one triangle step to the left from shape to shape, and if they exit the shape on its left side, they re-enter on its right side. Therefore, the next shape in the sequence should be colored like this. Note that in the actual interactive test, you need to click on these triangles to either color them white or red. The shape questions can be of varying difficulty, and the more you practice this type of questions, the more you get used to the type of patterns you need to watch out for. I personally find them rather easy, and I'm even happy when I see one of them, because I believe it is one question type where you can save time to have more thinking time for others. Unfortunately, and in contrast, the next two question types I find very challenging. Rules. The rules question type I find a very ugly one. If you have already watched some of my other online test tutorials, for instance my walkthrough video on the Psychometric games, you may know that I hate memory games. The rules type questions always dig at your memory skills and are different from the others. In the following, you will see a short video which will demonstrate to you how different buttons alter the characteristics of a shape. Once the video has been presented to you, you will be prompted with several altered shapes and need to state which buttons need to be clicked to get from the initial shape to the altered shape. I think the task is better illustrated by an example, so get ready and memorize what you see in the following video. Are you ready to memorize what you will see? 3, 2, 1, go! As soon as the video has finished, you need to answer. How many and which buttons need to be pressed to transform the shape on the left to the shape on the right? You have no option to watch the video again, you only have one shot at memorizing what has been presented to you. If you want to think for yourself, pause the video now. I will go on though, because it may happen to you that you will have to answer another question on the same sequence, so additionally, which buttons do you need to click in this second question on the same series? Pause the video now. If you do not know the solutions, you are not alone. I will reveal them to you in a moment. Note that in this simulation you were shown a video presenting you the effects of the buttons. In your test, you will instead be given a few seconds time to click on the buttons and familiarize yourself with their effects in advance to seeing the question, and again you can only do this once. Either way, I struggle with this question type, so the advice I can give after practicing them for quite a bit: don't try to memorize the button types mentally. Instead, as soon as you see an instruction screen coming up telling you that on the next screen you have to memorize some shapes or button effects, grab your piece of scratch paper and get ready. If you are a right-hander like me, I suggest you control the mouse by your left hand for clicking the buttons, so that with your right hand you can quickly note down the effects of the buttons. In the example I've just taken you through, your very quick notes could look like this. Though you won't have enough time to write so many words, so you can manage to write these 6 mini summaries. This is the key to succeed. With this effect summary at hand, solving the two questions is straightforward. Here's the solution to the first question, and here to the second one. Sorry, I know. This question type is a true party pooper. Let us get to the next question type. Sequences. Surprisingly, there are only 3 inductive reasoning question types, and while I really dislike the rules questions, let me come to the question type that I probably find the most daunting: sequences. Without further ado, let me introduce to you an example sequence question. I again invite you to have a crack at it yourself first. Pause the video now. Before I resume for the solution, I would like to show you an easier sequence. Can you solve this one? I invite you to subscribe to my Unit Consulting channel for further top quality business and careers advice and leave a like below this video. Also, it would be really helpful if you could state in the comments below which company you applied to and which SHL test module it demands you to take. Thank you so much. Now, back to the mess. If you find this question confusing, you are not alone. If you think you have cracked it, congratulations. Here is how it works. All sequence type questions come in the shape of these weird nodes that need to be connected. In the end, it is about finding the right or logical order for these 8 elements, so you could also write them below each other. The sequence for the first 4 elements is given. You need to correctly align the remaining 4 elements. This is the rule that applies to all elements in this sequence and which you need to identify. Whether it is a digit or a letter, whenever it moves from the 4th to the 3rd position, it decreases by 1. Whatever moves from the 3rd to the 2nd position increases by 2. Whatever moves from the 2nd position to the 1st position, it remains unchanged. The digit or letter at the 1st position moves to the 4th position and increases by 1, so this is why B becomes C. When you check this rule for all 4 given elements, you will see it applies to all of them. Then you can identify that this is the sequence for the remaining 4 elements. Now, what to do with these sequence questions? I honestly tell you that I have been struggling very much with them. I find them significantly harder than any other sequence type questions I have seen in other tests before. You must brace yourself for sequence rules that could cover shifting rules, such as in this example, hidden arithmetic connections, rules that only apply to every second element of a sequence, alternating rules, digits, numbers, and sometimes also symbols. By now, I have practiced a significant number of sequence questions and have got a good grip of them. I can only recommend you to do the same. This brings me directly to 6 tips on how to prepare, practice, and excel in your SHL test. In the following, I share with you my 6 tips on how to prepare and practice for your SHL assignment and how to succeed at it. First of all, I invite you to download my free Business and Consulting online test prep kit. By now it has grown to more than 20 pages and is packed with all the links to the free mock tests for the SHL test, which I will show to you in a moment, as well as free practice links for further online tests. You can download my prep kit immediately and for free after signing up to my Unit Consulting newsletter, link in the description below. Second, SHL itself does offer some free test preparation materials. SHL's own mock tests are hard to find and their organization is a bit messy, but some materials are there. There's a page where SHL provides a random assortment of SHL mock test modules. To prepare this video for you, I've gone through all of them and want to point you to the subset that is relevant. I recommend you to go through 3 mock test modules, namely the mobile-enabled and interactive numerical reasoning mock test, deductive reasoning mock test, and inductive reasoning mock test. The numerical reasoning test includes 10 questions, the deductive reasoning test 12, and the inductive reasoning mock test 15 questions. There also is an interactive general ability mock test, but I realize that SHL is not that generous. Its general ability mock test includes fewer questions and otherwise draws on exactly the same questions as the ones that you already find in SHL's 3 numerical, deductive and inductive reasoning mock tests. You can use these mock tests to further familiarize yourself with the type of questions that you need to brace yourself for. Also, the assessments are timed, so you get a feeling for how much time you have per question. Unfortunately though, you're not given any feedback on whether your answers are right or wrong, and no explanation is provided on how to derive the correct answers. It is stated that you should receive a report after you have gone through a mock test, but I did not receive any. The most important caveat though is, be aware that these official SHL mock questions are too easy in comparison to the real SHL assessments. So if you believe you have done well in these mock tests, do not get lulled in by a false sense of safety. After creating an account with SHL, I probably would use an email address that is different from those in your applications. Be aware that each time you want to do a mock test, you have to click through the same myriad of questions on your educational background, your ethnic background, your neurological diseases, I'm not joking, and your technical setup. I found this very dull, so be strong. You may remember that at the beginning of this video I had mentioned to you that SHL still offers a second, older version of its General Ability Test, which is dubbed the Standard Multiple Choice one. In case that, by the steps I explained to you at the beginning of this video, you find out that your employer of choice still uses the old version, not the new interactive one, only then also take a look at the 3 Standard Multiple Choice, Numerical Reasoning, Deductive Reasoning and Inductive Reasoning mock test modules. Again, the Standard Multiple Choice General Ability Test features the same mock questions as the 3 submodules. If you, however, are indeed asked to take the new interactive General Ability Test, then you will find that the Standard Multiple Choice mock test modules will not be of much help. These older SHL mock questions I found extremely easy and very different to the interactive ones. The other test modules on this page are not relevant for your General Ability Test. I have found another page where SHL offers some additional mock questions which however relate more to the old version of the SHL General Ability Test. Last but not least, there also is an FAQ section for candidates. I read through it and it mostly deals with admin and IT issues, so I mention it just for the sake of completeness. I have added all the links to these several official mock test pages as well as specifically to those 3 interactive mock test modules I recommend you to explore to my UN Consulting online test prep kit that you can download immediately and for free. See the link in the video description. Sorry I mentioned this multiple times in this video. I do this just because maybe you do not watch this video from the beginning to the end. My third tip: if you want to dedicate more effort to the preparation for your SHL General Ability Test, or if after going through SHL's comparatively easy mock test questions you realize you ought to practice more, there are significantly more and harder practice questions available. Throughout this video tutorial, I presented you several SHL example test questions to familiarize you with what to expect. These questions were taken from a perfect simulation of the interactive SHL General Ability Test and its 3 submodules. If you want to prepare for the SHL test properly, I state that this is hands down the best resource out there. I have reviewed all its modules in depth for preparing this video and therefore know this is what this complete SHL test simulation package offers. To practice for the interactive test, in its present version it includes 55 numerical reasoning mock test questions, 54 deductive reasoning mock test questions and 49 inductive reasoning test questions. They come at realistic difficulty and all the mock assessments are timed to allow you practice under real test conditions. What I like is that after each mock assessment you are not only being told how many questions you answered correctly, but also how well you perform in comparison to other mock test takers. This is exactly how SHL measures your performance too, namely by comparing it with that of your peers. What is crucial to me as well is that for all questions in the simulation, the provider has included a comprehensive solution guide, enabling you to understand the background behind each solution and to adopt the best solution finding strategies. If you expect to take the older version of the General Ability Test or subtest modules, the simulation package has covered you too. It includes at present almost 200 all-school numerical, 36 deductive and 198 inductive reasoning test questions. This professional SHL test prep package also includes practice tests for other SHL test modules such as verbal tests and even mechanical tests. So this most comprehensive SHL test prep kit will have you well covered. Fourth, SHL officially states, please try to work quickly but accurately. Do not spend too long on any one question. You must complete the entire test to avoid a score reduction. I suggest you to take this piece of advice to heart. While we cannot be sure about how SHL exactly evaluates your answers, this statement sounds to me as if unanswered questions are counted like false answers. While time is a strong enemy during this online assessment, do not get hung up for too long to a certain question and ideally try to finish the test. Fifth, and this is a simpler piece of advice, even though the new interactive version of the General Ability Test is now mobile enabled, and you can drag and drop some elements on your screen through the touch screen, I advise against taking the SHL test on your mobile. Even SHL itself warns that if completing this test on a mobile device, we recommend you turn off all notifications. There's nothing to gain from fiddling around with your mobile for the purpose of this test. Enjoy the luxury of a large screen and rather use your mouse than your fingers. 6th, for the deductive and inductive type questions, you do actually not need a calculator but just a pen and paper. However, you should have a calculator at hand and use it for the numerical type questions. If you have made it until here, congratulations! You have endurance, and this proves that you want to prepare for your upcoming SHL assignment as well as possible. To prove you have made it this far in this video, type "Party on" into the comments below this video to enter the Hall of Fame. Also, shoot your questions in the comment section. I try to get back at every single one, and please share your insights and fun stories in the comments below this video. Wow, that was another long video tutorial. I feel really hungover from this SHL party. If you found it useful, please like, subscribe and share for further business and career advice and some fun. And if you feel you ought to brush up your percentage calculation skills, check out this short video here. See you soon, Jack.